What's up, guys? This is Shawn Spann from Either Breather and Soulkiller, and you're watching Richard Metal Fan.
Hey everyone, episode 168 of Richard Metal Fan Interviews. Today's guest, we're talking to Shawn Spann. He is the lead vocalist for the band I the Breather, and he also has a new band called Soulkiller, which we're going to talk about. Today we're going to be talking to him about what got him into metal, as well as doing a rundown of his discography, as well as talk about his new band. So without further ado, let's go talk to Shawn. So what's up, guys? I am here with Shawn Spann from Either Breather and Soulkiller. How you doing today, Shawn?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing pretty well. It's a good, lovely evening here in Georgia where I'm at. So how is it over where you're at?
It's not too hot. Pretty good. It's like in the 70s, I think.
Yeah.
Can't complain about those days.
Yeah, even though if I work in a warehouse, it goes up to like 80 or 90, which is brutal.
That's hilarious. I actually, so like outside of music, I actually manage a warehouse here. So, I know all about that stuff.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've been doing the warehouse life for the last 4 years. So yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
It's definitely different.
Yeah, so kind of like the format is, I want to talk about like your musical journey and sort of like do like a rundown of your discography. But before we go into that, take me back to young Shawn Spann. So, kind of growing up, what were the first bands that got you into metal and what made you want to be a vocalist?
So I actually started off playing bass and singing with like some kids from like my neighborhood. And that kind of I feel like it got to a point in my age where I kind of outgrew that kind of group. So like then I started joining different like local bands. I had like a band called Dead Set Destroyer, which was like my first like real local band that I made before I the Breather. Which was like completely different. It was like uh just like a bunch of like 19-year-old kids just smoking weed all day and making music, not being very like productive. And um then I had some like stuff happen in my life, and then like I had become like a Christian at that time, and wanted to start like a group. um I'd been into like bands like Under Oath, and back then Spitfire was like a big thing for me, Norma Jean, but I also had like my love for like bands like Remembering Never, and like Undermined. That was also like when From First to Last was like kind of coming out. He Is Legend was coming out. So those are like my like that stuff, and Drive Through Records was basically baby me. That was like before Sumerian Records even existed at that time. So that would have never like been like a dream of mine. But yeah, dude, I remember like being in bedrooms and like talking about sending demo tapes in, like of us practicing. It had always been a dream of mine to like be a touring like signed band. Yeah, it started young, like at 14. So
Yeah. And so, how did Either Breather form? Because I know y'all formed 2009.
yeah, yeah, it was interesting. So I was pretty well versed in like the music scene in Baltimore. So like I would, hang out, talk to like a lot of hardcore metal bands, but at the same time I also had like a lot of friends that were like pop punk and like All Time Low. Back in the day, there were like friends growing up. There was a band called Oh the Story that was friends with them, that like I was mutual friends with as well. And I was like trying to get in with like doing a little bit heavier music at that time. And that band of the story actually was like, we know a guy that actually was just touring with O Sleeper and makes music with a guy out west, which is like 2 hours away from me. And then like I got connected with those guys, and at the beginning of the stages when we just met, we were like writing like kind of like the Receiving and a Sirens type music. It wasn't even like close to anything Either Breather. um and then I found out that like Justin Huffman, the guitar player the original guitar player for Breather, was actually like really close with the guys in ABR, and had actually like that was like his style of music. And like I found his SoundCloud. This is like, oh my god, 2009. I found a SoundCloud with all like the OG Either Breather riffs, like before they even became songs. So like, like Forgiven was on there as just like the opening intro of that. I was like, why are we doing this kind of like Receiving on a Siren stuff when like we could be doing this? Like this is fun and heavy. And that's basically like then we were like, okay, cool, we're gonna be a band. This is gonna be like type of music we're gonna do. And that's how like Either Breather kind of just became at that point. It was just by like mutual friends and just the fact that they were like into like metalcore when it was like kind of getting going. It was like a really cool thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I still tell me about like making that self-titled debut EP, which came out in 2010. I heard was that something to like pass out to like labels to eventually get signed to Sumerian?
Dude, it wasn't even in our and like at that point in time, it wasn't even something that like I was thinking about. It was like cool, let's like make these demos, and like we made the demos, and what happened was those demos got heard by what we didn't know at the time was going to be our future manager, Chris Jocelyn. And Chris was actually like best for at the time. We were talking a little bit, talking to like CI Records in like Solid State. They wanted us to change our name, do all this stuff. um but then at the same time, like this is like right when the demo dropped, um Chris Jocelyn hit us up because he heard what we had done, like self-produced and all that stuff. And he was like, okay, cool. I used to be from there. I'm actually like best friends with Ash at Sumerian. I know this sounds weird. It's like a MySpace message. But I'd like to hear a little bit more of what you guys are doing. And we just finished recording these demos, and we have this guy like, hey, can you record two more songs? And those two ended up being Crown Me King and Doomsday. So then when we recorded those two songs, I told the band that we were like going to be recording it for free, but in reality, I was like paying the producer because I felt bad. Um, like I paid Derv, who actually recorded the first full length. He's the one that did that second demo. The whole purpose of that second demo was to showcase like the future stuff we were writing for Sumerian. And then like before we knew it, like we were in Cincinnati playing for Chris Jocelyn. We finished our set and boom, like that, like within months of being a band, it was wild.
Yeah. And tell me about making your first album, These Are My Sins. Very underrated debut album in the Sumerian Records thing. So what was the thought process going into making the first Either Breather record?
The That was just based, like we just wanted to like create fun music, and like everything was like fun. That was like when things were fun, we were just like, this is what we are, and like we don't care. But we actually went back to Derv, who did the two-song demo that we released, and he did that entire album, and much different than the future ones because like those ones would be with like producers. They would have people that would like bounce back ideas with us as we were writing. As to where with Derv and the first album, it was like, this is 100% us. There's no like bouncing back and forth. It's like record the part and the part good take, cool. Like it was like that kind of element for that album. So it was just like very refreshing at that time.
Yeah. And tell me about like the song Conquer, which has like guest vocals from Dustin from August Burns Red. How'd you end up hooking up with him to do like guest screams on that?
Yeah, like I had said a little bit previously, um, so Justin, the guitar player, is actually like best friends with Dustin. So when I don't even think, to be honest with you, I don't think that like that was even anything I was thinking about going to the studio at the time. It was kind of like, hey, do you want to have like Dustin do a part in here? And I was like, well, obviously, that'd be freaking incredible. Um, so like he actually came to the studio and like we all like vibed together and stuff. Now I think that was my first, no, that was my second time like meeting him, but like my first time actually like chilling with him and stuff, because they had ABR had us play the OG DVD shoot. Like it was like hometown warehouse, like 120 degrees inside. But that's like kind of like where that friendship kind of like bloomed and stuff. But Conquer, oh man, we're going real far back. I couldn't tell you exactly what in depth details what that song's about, to be honest.
It's all good. But do you remember like the first tour you did in support of These Are My Sins?
Yes. Yeah, it was Scream the Prayer Tour. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, what was that whole tour like? Because I know there was like eight, not eight or plus spans or so.
Yeah, yeah, that was back when like Sumerian was throwing like summer tours. That was for today, right? Yeah, for today, Maylene. Um, that was a long day, but it kind of like made me appreciate touring because like my first two main tours were like Scream the Prayer one, like that one, and then the second one, and I think we had one tour in between. But like my first year of touring, like all I knew of touring was being at the venue at noon and then leaving, at midnight, in a van with no air conditioning and just the grind, the passion to make that $100 to the next show, like brand new band. But it was cool. There was a lot of bands that were on that tour that I like fell in love with. I think A Plea for Purging was on that tour as well.
Yeah,
Could be wrong. Yeah, yeah, I think they were on
yeah,
that one.
yeah,
Um, but that was one of the most amazing moments of my life because I didn't know what touring was like until I did that. So
yeah. And then your second album, Truth and Purpose. I love this album because usually with the debut album, you have like your entire life to write, and there's a lot of hype with the first album. When it
yeah,
came to making Truth and Purpose, did you feel pressure to follow up These Are My Sins?
of course, man. I think the biggest thing for me though back then, is because I didn't want to be put into a lot like a category per se. And the biggest thing for me going forward with that album is like make sure we don't sound like ABR and all the other metalcore bands because we're getting lumped into it. And I've always been very firm on like how can we maybe have influence in that department, but like set ourselves apart, you know? Um, so the biggest thing for me on that album was kind of just like trying to set ourselves apart from, it was like Texas in July, us, and that was and like ABR and like a lot of the bands had like that core, sound back then. We wanted to do that and add some elements. So that's basically what Truth and Purpose was with like introducing singing and stuff as well too.
Yeah. And I know, no, didn't you do like Mayhem Fest the year this album came out? What was that like? Because I know you're playing with like Slipknot and stuff.
Yeah, that was I mean, like I remember that day, when we got the phone call. We were in a hotel. We didn't get hotels often. Like I mean, if ever. But we were at a hotel for some reason. Maybe it was like a day off or something. Everyone wanted showers. But I remember my manager calling me. And he's like, "Yeah, put me on speakerphone." And I was like, "Okay, what's going on here?" Because at this point in time, we were like leading up to that summer. We're like, "Cool, this album's out, and we have nothing lined up this summer yet. Like we're freaking, I don't want to say desperate, but we were desperate at that point to get some type of summer tour to help that album." And then Chris is on the other line going, "You guys want to tour Slipknot?" And we're like, "That's funny, dude." He's like, "No, I'm serious." We're just like, "What do you mean?" He's like, You guys are gonna be on a bus. You're gonna split the bus with Upon and Burning Body. Um, and you're gonna be on tour with Slipknot this summer. It's Mayhem Festival. And we're just like, this can't be like real,
Yeah.
any musician, I don't care who you are at that point, you get that call, that's like, wow, we did the damn thing. But then the crazier part was being on the tour and like seeing that freaking monster work every day. I mean, you're talking about the biggest professionals in the world, like coming from someone that was like just doing like the Scream the Prayer tours the first two summers to like a production level like this on our third summer tour was like, you know, you don't really ever think you're gonna be eating lunch next to like Jim Root or like Corey Taylor or
Yeah.
who the guys in Motorhead and
Yeah.
fucking Slayer. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
like just eating lunch next to them is insane
Yeah.
in itself.
Yeah.
But
Did you ever
watching
get to
some of
meet
that,
Corey Taylor?
I do see. I'm very bad with that kind of stuff. I I, I had extreme anxiety before I knew what anxiety was. And I, I'm the kind of guy that I'll walk up to you and say, "Dude, that was a fucking killer set," and that's gonna be the end of the conversation. Like I struggle with like maintaining that conversation and making myself look like an ass or something, especially in someone that massive. But yeah, definitely, we had attended their parties and stuff like that. there was like a lot of mutual respect, but I didn't really have one-on-one time with him per se.
All right. And then, of course, the Life Reaper. I like this album. This is actually the album that how I discovered I the Breather on. So, what was that like going from Truth and Purpose to this?
So that album is my baby. Um, that album, there was so many uncertains in the future by the Breather at that point in time. We had just lost Morgan, which was like the heartbeat of the band. Um, and he went on to do like amazing things with like being a news anchor and stuff like that. You know, I'm so proud of him for like following this dream and landing it, and then getting a dream like that and landing it. You know, that's very rare to do. So it's so respectable to see. But you know, at the same time, we're in the studio like Justin had just left too. And so we're on album number 3. This is the make or break album. And then it's, you know, we're basically starting from scratch, you know. So at that point in time, I was basically living at that studio and working with Grant and Carson um every every hour possible on how to make that album the best it could be. Whether it was like, I think, you know, maybe changing these notes in the chorus might give me the ability to do this kind of singing over it, or we would just constantly just rework songs and restructure songs and see how we can make this fresher. And that's why that album is just like so distant from the other ones, because we actually like had the time to fucking sit down and write. And I feel like we found ourselves in that album as a band, but I think it was also a little bit too early for that sound to be coming out musically. So kind of like put a damper and everything. That's why you see like a lot of people like you said, that's how you discovered it. You know, like I hear so many people that are like in 5 years after the band, like discovering that album. It was just like
Yeah.
one of those things like, damn, you know, like missed that hit.
Yeah, because I actually remember seeing you the same year this album came out. You played at that's not venue anymore. It's Swayze's venue in Marietta, Georgia. You played I think you played there back in 20 May of 2014. I think it was like
Yeah.
right before this album came out. And I mean now it's a barber shop, but I remember seeing you live and I thought you were actually really great live. I think I enjoyed you like more live than on CD. You definitely know how to pull the crowd in and stuff.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I feel like I remember that. Was that with Oceano? No.
Oh. I can't.
No.
I can't even remember. I know there was like one of my local buddies band opened that show.
Hmm. I remember that venue, but I'm having issues like putting pictures in my face right now. It's been so long.
Yeah, yeah. But then of course in 2015, like how hard was it to sort of end either breather, and then of course in 2020, you what made you decide to bring it back?
So it was one of those things where life was pulling me in a different direction. Um, and we kind of like hit a point with Breather where um third albums are very weird times for band. You either hit it and it skyrockets, or like it doesn't quite land where you want. And at that time, the album was just it was doing well. Like it was doing the numbers that it needed to be doing, but it wasn't doing well for us in the sense where like I had just had a kid and this album was good enough to help me tour and still take care of my kid, you know? Um, and that had to be a priority for me, to be a father. You know, I wanted to see my kid grow up. He's 8 years old now. His name's Jude. Coolest kid ever. And then when I came back in 2020, it was kind of like a big full circle, you know, like my son had grown up. He had no idea dad was really, I mean, he knew, but he didn't really like understand that dad did music for a living before he was born. So I was like, maybe we're at a correct age now where I can show him that, like, you know, you can follow your dreams and do these things, and like they can work, you know. And also at the same time, I was really in a bad place mentally. And I was like, you know what? I think I need music back in my life. So that's what created the whole coming back. but then we released some music, we did our tour, and then unfortunately like that's when like my depression came back full blast. And it kind of just like sucked it all out of the band. We lost all the momentum because of it. And I realized, like that yes, music is like a great thing for me emotionally. It just wasn't like that wasn't what I should have been doing. Like I should have, sat through it. I mean, I'm grateful for the songs we released, but I needed to start fresh. Like I needed to have the ability to like create something that I was genuinely feeling. And which is what ended up creating Soulkiller,
Yeah.
my new band.
Yeah, but I also really like those two songs, "Pray" and "Brain Sick," and I've loved how you got
Yeah.
like Nick Nocturnal from because I love his YouTube videos. So what was that like working with him?
That was an interesting situation, but with me being away from music for so long, I didn't really know who um like reaction videos were like a new thing for me because back when my previous albums were releasing, you sent your reviews via email to somebody that reviewed it and wrote an article about it. They weren't like listening to it and like reacting live. Um, and then Logan had actually known Nick and was like, "Hey, my friend Nick's gonna do a reaction for this video," and I was like, "Oh, cool, I'm gonna check it out." Um, and I ended up checking it out. It was funny. Like his like smoke alarm went off during it. And I just remember being like, cool, this dude's cool. I really enjoy this stuff. And then like I think a couple months went by and we were like pushing around the idea of bringing on another guitar player. And I don't know how it happened or came about, but it ended up working out to be Nick. And we basically were writing the structure of the song, and then Nick kind of came over it and like added his little like metalcore background into the song. So that stuff just that's how that kind of thing came to be. It's very short lived, unfortunately. But like I said, sometimes life just pulls you in those directions, and you got to make that choice for yourself mentally.
Yeah.
As to like try and keep fixing something that you've been working on for so long, or just like give yourself grace and fucking start something fresh.
Yeah, and how did you and of course you have like the Soul Killer, your new band. So how did the formation of the band come to be? How'd you get to know everybody and form the band?
So the guy who actually did both Prey and Brainsick the videos for, his name's Phil, who is actually the bass player of Soulkiller. Um, I had, known him since doing videos with him, and I put a post on Facebook one day. I was like, I really want to be on stage again in the Midwest, like not really looking to do like full-time tours. So like I want it to be like people close to me. I don't want to do like the multiple state thing, blah blah blah. And then like within the hour, he messaged me a song that they were working on, and I was like, okay, this is like definitely new and unique. It's a song we haven't released yet, but I went on, I did vocals within like the day, like I got the demo, I vibed with it so hard that like within I think 4 hours we basically had the hook, all the main parts of the song, and they were like, okay, let's do it. And then that was the formation of us right then and there. It was insane how it's just like one of those things where it's like meant to be, just works out like that.
Yeah. And tell me about like your debut song Fire, which I was listening to it in preparation for this interview and it's fucking amazing. So, how did the
Thanks.
whole writing and recording of the song come to be and what is like the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, so that definitely that song kind of sits on its own on the EP. Um, it has the same characteristics as the other song, but I think we did like a little bit of each song in this one. Um, and I just really I wanted to showcase my vocals, and put falsetto stuff in songs, and I felt like it's kind of like the point in the industry where people were like more willing to like actually enjoy vocalists that sing and scream. and I think that that song gave it the perfect opportunity to do both those things. So we really dove in, and I was feeling really certain way about like toxic people at the time. That's what that song's basically about. Um, like the lyrics basically represent someone that just implodes everything around them constantly. And yeah, that song was kind of like a showcase of everything we're gonna do musically, and that's why we released that one first.
Yeah, and so with this song, is that sort of like a hint, like something that will be on like the debut like EP or full length, or is that just like kind of like a small taste or kind of like a one-off kind of thing?
So yeah, that would definitely be included in the EP. We're in talks right now about doing 6 possible songs. We have 6 written. It's just a matter of like, are we going to release this as the EP and then do a full length after that, or so we're gonna like release some singles. So that song that I'm talking, the one that I was talking about that I had written when Phil first came to me, is going to be one of them. It's called Devil, and then I think the next song that we're gonna drop. Um, it's called Blacklist, and we actually have a music video for it. It's all done. We're just finalizing some tweaks here with the mix and that video because we do everything in house, literally like production. Um, like we don't have a producer that's helping us write the music. Like everything is us. We record it into our computers. I go to my friend Spencer in Madison to record my vocals, and then we mix it. And then we do all of our video work through Phil. So it's like 100%, you know, us hitting our deadlines constantly.
All right. And I noticed you actually recently played your debut live show with Soulkiller. So how was that show?
It was nerve wracking. But the reward for it at the end of the night when we went on was one of the most inspirational moments I think I've ever experienced. One like Spencer's band, the guy that does my vocals, his band played. Then there's a band called Dead Awake who they played Breather's reunion show in Madison. They played right before us, and I mean when they went on, like the vibes are great all night, but when they went on, I felt like everybody in the building was moshing. It was pretty fucking insane.
Yeah.
Um, and when you see moments like that, and it's like a deathcore band going on right before you, you're not quite deathcore, but like you're like, man, are these people really gonna stay and like give a crap? I mean, the crowd was amazing, and then we went on, and it felt like everybody like respected what we were doing. They stuck around. They like came into the stage. We even had people singing along. Um, you kind of like pick up on parts throughout the set. Like if you hear it in the set, you can kind of like when that part comes back, you can memorize. So we have people like memorizing parts that of songs that weren't even released yet and singing them back. We had people singing Fire. It was just like a very like, man, like I can do this. Like I felt great. And a lot of people there were very thankful. And I think it's just gonna be awesome to like put Madison on the map, like have some really awesome bands come out of here. And if us doing music here is what that like helps create, like I'm 1,000,000% here for it.
Yeah, and how different of like a mind frame is it playing live than it is like recording? Is there like any similarities or they're kind of separate?
It's completely different because like in the studio, I mean, this is kind of my fault because I don't have like my own microphone. Well, I have microphones that I practice with yet that at like practice, but I don't have the microphone that I want yet, so I don't use it like my own live. I use the venues. But like getting adjusted to different microphones is massive. As a vocalist, at least, like it helps you. Learning the microphones does a big thing. So in studio, the SM7, I've always used it. So that's like my go-to microphone in the studio. I know the ins and outs of that microphone. I feel like I can get out what I want. And then you switch to like the in-ears and house mics. And it's a completely different element. It feels better because you actually have the emotion of the crowd too in front of you. But as far as like our debut show goes, it's like nobody really knows our music yet. You know what I mean? They know like one song and they're like learning these others as the set goes on. But um, the experience is it's amazing to see it go from the studio, all the work you put in, and then being able to play it live. Like it's very rewarding.
Awesome. And sort of like in the end to wrap things up, what's next for Soulkiller? I know you mentioned it got the EP coming. Is there like any like tours in the works or any other shows that you're allowed to announce?
We're not going to be announcing anything yet. We're planning like an EP release thing. Um, we're trying to keep the tours short and sweet if we do any tours. But we're trying to start from the ground up. So, like we don't even have a vehicle yet and stuff like that. We're like really we're investing into like the live shows. So, like we just bought like a lighting package that we'll be using at future shows, like for our EP release run thing that we're gonna do. So yeah, like getting started. There's a lot of those costs as well, but we will be announcing some stuff here soon. We're just looking to keep it kind of like in the Midwest for the time being. Indianapolis or like Milwaukee, Madison, Chicago, Minnesota, stuff like that. Maybe a little bit stuff down south. Um, and we've always said, if it comes to it and like someone hits us up to do 2 weeks in this area, then like, we'll figure out a way to make that kind of stuff work. And then one-offs here and there. But yeah, stuff will start rolling out soon once we start getting more music out.
Awesome. So thank you, Shawn, for this conversation. It was great to be able to talk with you today. There's just
Yeah.
any final words you want to say to close this out to the viewers that are watching us?
Just thank you for giving a fuck, honestly. um it's definitely difficult coming back and playing music. Not only that, but like creating a new band. But it's been really people have been really receptive to it so far. So I'm very thankful for that. So thank you. And if you haven't checked it out, please do. I think it's something that everybody can take something from and enjoy. And then the future stuff, it's going to be heavier. Some of the stuff might be softer. But yeah, just get ready for the new stuff to come.
Awesome. So everybody, Shawn Spann from Soulkiller / I the Breather. We'll see you next time.